Jason's going to record it too, and then we'll post it. So Jason's going to build a color picker. You all have used a color picker so far when I say color picker, right? So so if you don't know what we mean by color picker, Jason will give an example of a color picker. Yeah, so you're going to build something like this. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe we'll get it that fancy. We'll see the videos. We've got about half an hour before we should do it for lunch. So Jason is doing his thing where he made a directory. He's gonna make his public directory. He's gonna make a index HTML, and he's made his package JSON. This is Jason's workflow. He's probably gonna set up browser sync. He may set up Surge. We'll see.
Actually, for now,
You're just gonna do browser sync.
I'm just gonna do browser sync, and I'll run my. Well, I'll go ahead and install it here.
So I did publish to Newline. It should be in your Newline list. It's not in there. It is in there now. A short how-to guide for browser sync. That doesn't go through the package JSON version. It goes through the more simple version of just having it as a thing on your computer you can run from anywhere. It's in, if you refresh your Newline view, that should be in there.
What's it called?
It's called browser sync. It'll be down underneath today's section. It'll be next to version control with Git. Oh, wait, it went in the wrong spot. Thank you, drag and drop. I will put it down here. No, put it here. No, put it here. It should be in today. Sorry, it got dragged to the wrong spot in the new line. So you have to refresh the new line. Cool. So we may refresh that and also include the version that talks about in package JSON, but what's in there now is like this very direct sort of 2 or 3 step guide to using that. Yes. Start using it. I was not a browser sync person or the equivalent for a long time until I was here working with Jason, and he's kind of converted me into that workflow. I can say the more that I do with that when I'm doing front-end work has really changed my workflow.
It doesn't have to be browser sync in particular. There's a lot of different tools that provide this live reloading, but I find any workflow that doesn't live reload my stuff pretty much unacceptable.
And you'll find that, so for instance, if you are a Rails developer, there are packages for Rails that will do this. If you're a Java developer, there are tools inside the Java world which will also do this. What's nice about browser sync, just from like we're working mostly with static pages, it's really a great simple tool for doing that. Jason's just tweaking browser sync.
This is public. Oh, maybe I have to. Maybe I do have to.
No, I tried that and it didn't work for me.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay. So let's get this and this. Close
So
this
standard
up.
split screen.
Okay. So let's make this a little smaller.
So you would say, Jason, this is how you work most of the time?
Always. Yeah.
Typically with like 1 or 2 files open in your editor with the navigation view closed for maximum code size, and then your browser a little bit tinier on the right hand side.
Yeah. So this is where the color is going to be. Let's see.
So again, you're kind of thinking through the elements that your page needs.
Yeah.
And not even yet worrying about any of the CSS rules.
Right.
And Jason's thinking a couple shortcuts that maybe you're not quite ready to do, which is fine. he already knows that this div he's going to have to address somehow, so he's giving it a class. He knows that he's going to have to address it with CSS to style it, and he knows he's likely to need to address it with JavaScript. So you're starting to put classes on things that he is going to need. If you're not sure, you can do the step of just putting in the elements and add classes as needed. It's generally better to have fewer classes than more. It's better to have fewer DOM elements than more. So Jason feels pretty confident. He's done this demo a lot of times, and he's an experienced developer, of putting in some classes now before he knows he needs them. It's okay if you end up just making the divs and the ULs, and then coming out along saying, I need to style this UL, oh, I need a class, let me add a class. I need to access the JavaScript, let me add a class. Let's see what else is done. So he's put in a couple of labels and some inputs, and he's used a type we may not have seen, I don't remember if it was in our reading, this type of range, which I think was a, was this in the?
Yeah, it was in the
Good, yeah. This is one of the newer style inputs that gives us this nice kind of slider. Probably be styled a little bit differently into the browsers you try. Right, it'll look like this in Chrome, like a little bit different in Firefox. But there should be some kind of range selector.
It's Opera, but it's running Chrome.
Yeah.
Everything
Chrome and Opera are in the UI are
under the hood, it's identical. Yeah.
the only difference between Chrome and Opera is Chrome. Like Chrome being the outside of the page, like how,
Yeah.
how the extensions work. That was like. Cool, so we're displaying Flex to get these things to kind of go side by side. Nice. Jason, you did height 100% on the bottom.
Yeah. So now when I do this, I'm going to move these to the body.
Ah,
Now I've centered.
it.
Yeah.
Nice. And the height 100% is to make sure that the body stretches all the way to the bottom of the page.
Yes.
Not the bottom of the content.
Yeah. Because if
I
I
was
take
talking to somebody about this the other day. Why would you put a height on the body? It's because as our page starts to fill out, that's how high the body is. It's not as high as the browser viewport. It's only as tall as the content that fills it. So Jason needs to put in.
technically,
100%.
you really would want to do this. Min height 100% for the body. Because what's that?
Viewport?
Yeah, view height would work as well here. 100 view height, it would have the same result.
Whatever you want to do, the height 100%.
So for this to work, actually, made a liar out of me. In general, like I set this initially to be height because, and maybe it's maybe when you use percent it didn't work. Yeah. So back in the day, before view height was a thing, you would need to do this, and it's habit for me to still put height 100% on the HTML because this wouldn't work without it. Nowadays with view height, it works. That's fine.
I suspect that I had this before. I think the reason is that we have the body tag is still inside of the HTML tag, and
Yes.
the HTML tag is actually the thing that's
Yeah, when you set it to percent, it meant because you didn't always have view height. So I still have this sort of like, I've been doing this for 20 years and I always throw a height 100% on the HTML tag. so that it fills to the whole window, which is what it can. Then the body, sometimes the body is going to be bigger than the window and they're scrolling. So you set the minimum height to 100% so that it's at least that big, right? And then if there's more content, then it's fine. It will scroll. I happen to know that there's not going to be anything else on my color picker here, which is why I initially just set them both to height 100%, because I know it's not going to ever be more than that because there's nothing to scroll. So I was kind of, shorthanding it, but this works here just as fine. Min height 100 VH.
And the rest is just the display flex, the column, and the sentence is just to get the those things.
Yep.
So even if you do have the option to minimum, it's not the body won't be as big as
Yeah, because if I had more content on here, then I wouldn't be able to scroll. Yeah. So,
It looks like the style of color picker.
yeah. So let's see. Let's take our UL dot sliders. They have a padding left on them. Sorry, 0 by default, and I also want to get rid of the list style. Done. I'm going to take my UL.sliders. I'm going to take the labels that are in there.
You slide it a little bit, Jason.
I sure can. My labels and say display block so that they get their own line.
You're kind of going through and applying some basic styling
Yeah.
to the elements on the page.
Yep. And had this div here, right, with a color well. So
I also noticed, Jason, you're making some decisions about where to put these styles.
yeah, so in general, I'm going to try, and this doesn't always work, I'm going to try to put the styles in the order in the style sheet that they roughly appear in the HTML page, as best I can. Because the HTML page is a tree structure, my CSS file is flat, sometimes I can't do that. And I'm going to also put general elements that, like if I had a bunch of H1 tags, a bunch of H2 tags, like they might be all throughout the thing, but I'm styling all of them everywhere. I'll put all of those styles up at the top, like my general typography stuff and that kind of stuff. I just try to do what feels right and then kind of be consistent about it. There's no hard rules here.
Would it be wrong to do the CSS styling based on what appears first on the actual page?
It's more or less what I'm doing, but like I said, there's some things that would come up to the top.
Are you asking, like, when you're breaking the problem down, do you kind of start at the top of the page and style your way down?
No, I mean like with the way you lay out the CSS, is it inappropriate to lay it out based on what actually appears first on the page going down? Because like I know the HTML tree structure.
Sort of what he's doing.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
But like in a mobile display, for example, certain things can disappear or shift around and move places, so they don't necessarily follow the same layout as the HTML.
Yeah, I think Jason is going more on the tree structure of the HTML than where they physically appear on the page. He's not going through the page visually, more so as he's kind of starting at the top of it. He's kind of walking through the HTML saying, I should really style the sliders and work my way down. Even if the sliders via CSS will appear above the other things. He's working more structurally than he is visually through this. Okay, so now you made your color well a specific size.
Yep.
Yeah,
I also
or-
changed the tag to use the figure tag and the fig caption tag,
Oh, cool.
which is getting a little fancy with some of the very semantic tags that
Can you look again,
exist.
please?
What's that? Yep.
Can you scroll this up?
Sure. So let's see. I'm just going to display flex, justify content, center, align items, center, and there's that there.
Ah. So the caption is the value of the color you're displaying in the center.
Yes.
Your monospacing, so it's
Yep.
Isn't your figure the whole square?
the figure is the square and the text there is the caption.
Yeah.
I thought big captions actually showed up below the figure.
No, they're in it. What you might often do is have a fig and then put like an image here,
Oh yeah.
and then it would be below it because there it is. So a lot of times you've seen colors like this, right?
R, G.
Right? Or maybe we have RGB and we put the value for red, the value for green, and the value for blue here, right? Which I turned out with a high number for green and a low number for red and blue, so I end up with this green here. What we're going to build is a color picker that instead of using the RGB color model, which is 3 values, one for red, one for green, one for blue, I'm going to use a different color model, which is basically just a different mathematical formula for coming up with a color, where I specify a hue, a saturation, and a lightness. A lot of times for selecting colors, when we know what color we want, an HSL color picker works more logically with the way we think, because then I'm not thinking about mixing red, green, and blue to get to a color. I'm thinking, let me pick the hue, how saturated, which is somewhere like from a very intense color to gray, and then the lightness being from like white to black, like how light or dark is the color, how saturated is the color, and then what's the hue of the color around the color wheel. It's a lot easier for us mentally to think about when picking colors.
I've also found it easier when I'm working on a page where I want to use a very similar color palette. Like, oh, I want something that's like that red, but not as saturated. It's easier to be able to use HSL just to lower that saturation than trying to figure out like how much green and blue do I need to remove out of that red to get the same saturation amount.
So, what am I missing here? HSL. Hang on. I thought. Why wouldn't I put that there? Okay, fine. So in addition, so for HSL here, let's put this at 50% and 50%, and I'm going to end up with 0 is red. If I go 180 degrees around on the color wheel, oh, do you not put degrees? That's where I was messing up. There is a unit in CSS, degrees, and I thought I used it here. Anyway, so if I go 180 degrees around from red on the color wheel, I end up with this blue. Right? If I go 90 degrees, go with that, 95, right? We can see us start to work our way around the color wheel. 360 degrees makes full circle. But anyway, if I just want a gray or a black here, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to say 50%, and then I'm going to change this to HSLA, which also gives me an alpha value. And I'm sorry, it's not 50%, it's 0.5. So now I have a transparent black. So if I put on the color well itself another background color, let's just start off with red, then this will be there, kind of, let's go a little bit like that. Let's add some padding, a little border radius here. And let's change the color of this text to white, but let's give it a text shadow of, yeah. So this is the offset on the 0, 0, a very small blur, and it's also going to just be black. I'm just going to copy. Actually, I'll just write black.
We're giving it a little bit of text shadow so that
Yeah.
when maybe the background color ends up being white, you can still kind of see the effect. And just make it stand off in the background.
There we go. I like that. And maybe not black. I'm just going to go with a very dark gray. Color of the beast. There's one of my go-to dark gray. I'm happy with that for now. I might revisit it later, but I'm happy with that for now. So
I think that's a really important statement. So Jason has done somewhat to get it at least looking a little bit like a color picker, but he's not going to go all the way, maybe at this point, to pixel perfection. So he knows that there's some more things he wants to capture. And you may find that when he gets down to working on the sliders or working on the JavaScript, he may have to back out of some ideas that he had done here. So it's always going to be the balance of flowing between CSS in your JavaScript and back to HTML and back to CSS. So if you find yourself stuck in one element, like you're just working on perfecting the CSS before you've gotten into the JavaScript, you may want to back off of that a little bit because you may find some future work you're going to do may make you rework things, and as a program we don't like doing rework. So try and float between at least CSS and JavaScript, and then back to HTML when we need to.
Cool.
Because as long as you've got something that Jason has here, is that you can start to see, as I slide the slider down, will it do what I want it to do? He's in a good position to see that that effect will work the way he wants.
Yep.
It may not be pixel perfect yet, but you can start to see functionality.
So let's write some JavaScript.
You need your JavaScript file, now you're going to include it.
So show them brown content ready today.
No.
Okay. So down here at the bottom, if I just say, hey, this is my first sanity check. I just want to make sure that my JavaScript file was loaded and it's going to do what it says it's going to do. So I just console.log, hey, there it is in my console at the bottom left, bottom right. I'm going to bump the font size up. Oop, not on that, but on this. No, I opened it earlier. I'm going to change the size of our color well.
Yeah, and I think you just two-stroke opened it.
Yeesh.
I guess that's better than sitting there saying, why isn't this working?
Yeah.
Like half an hour.
Yeah.
It's not even
I am going to sanity check at every step along the way. I'm going to constantly be, the code I just wrote, let me make sure that's working before I move on, constantly. I will never just write a bunch of code that I hope works later.
Because I can tell you, having been doing this years and years and years and years, it almost never runs the first time. Like when I write more than like maybe 10, 20 lines of code and they all work, you will see me do a dance like when that happens. Because it does not happen that often. Like, it almost never works the first time. So the way around that is make sure you're checking it more often. I keep that console open.
Yeah. So I'm going to write in my personal JavaScript style as well. So if you have any questions about that, like feel free to ask. Make a function called update color, right? And what we're going to do is, well, is equal to the color well. So let me just make sure that I've got that. You're going to see me use some shortcuts that you don't have. Is that what you're going to Jasoning about? Yep. How did I make document query selector appear so fast?
No.
Oh.
How you able to tab to the field where it says select?
Yeah. I have a snippet that I type QS and I hit tab and it writes out document.query selector and lets me tab stop into it. Yeah. You'll see the built-in package that Atom has. So let's do this JavaScript. See this JavaScript core package? I have it disabled in Atom. Go here to community packages. I'll show you, and it's published in NPM. Actually, you can go ahead and install it if you want, and I've never had any problems with it. Maybe it's, no, where is it? It's in here somewhere.
Can you search for it?
Yeah. Oh, Atom.js standard. This is it.
By Jason.
Yeah, by me.
Oh.
It's,
Download
I have 61 downloads for it, so hey, I'm not getting anywhere near the 3 million that Atom Beautify has, but
And we can get you there.
yeah, it's bad. Although I do have a package here, and I think I currently have it disabled that I wrote, Emmet.js CSS modules that has almost 10,000 downloads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your JavaScript packages have shortcuts that you use.
Yeah. So whenever you see me like do a little JavaScript snippet and it's not quite what yours are, I disabled all the built-in ones in Atom, all of them, and I went and I rewrote them in the way I write my JavaScript and using shortcuts that I prefer for the shortcuts. And I occasionally go through and I add new ones when I'm finding I'm typing the same thing a lot. Disable language JavaScript and also install language Babel. Language. That's this language here. So instead of the regular JavaScript language, install language Babel and my Atom.js standard package. And I think those instructions might be in the README if you go look at it.
Yeah.
So that's the answer to. So whenever you see me type CL instead of log, and it does the wrong thing because I'm on your computer, I'm so used to typing CL on mine. If I hit F and I type tab, it makes the boilerplate for an arrow function. Yeah, so F and then I hit tab, I get that, and then I can type something here, hit tab, and I'm in here.
So here's like here's the thing. As a developer, I don't use any of those. I like typing them all out.
Yep.
Yeah,
And that's okay.
that's really okay. And I have my reasons. My reason is if I feel personally, if I become addicted to those shortcuts, then when I come to your computer and you don't have those shortcuts, now I feel like a fish out of water a little bit. Like I'm not sure how to do the thing that I want to do. I've built up a muscle memory around shortcuts. So you'll find that a lot of developers love shortcuts, and there's a lot of developers who do not like shortcuts. So I will type out document.query selector and then type out the thing. Because for me, that works everywhere. But QS tab may not be everywhere, and in my brain, I've trained my brain to do QS tab. When I show up on Angel's machine, I type QS tab, it doesn't do the thing. But I gotta take a second and go, oh yeah, document.query selector.
Yeah, for me, I don't mind that second. I'm like, oh yeah, I don't have it, and I'll just write it out.
Yeah.
So.
All preferences.
So I declared that function, and notice obviously before nothing gets logged. But if I go ahead and I call that function right away, there it logs my color well. So this console.log here is a sanity check to make sure like is well the thing I thought it was going to be. Yes, it's that thing. So let's change the background color of it. So well has a property called style. All the divs do, or all elements do. And I'm going to say background color. And now I can write something here like blue. And there, it changed it to blue. Right? I can write HSL, and then let's say I want 120 at 50% and 50%, and there it is, right? So what I want to do is take a hue, saturation, and a lightness.
So notice that even before Jason said that he thought that maybe he would need a few saturation lines, he tried one out. He experimented with what would happen if I just tried picking a number. Again, trying out things along the way. Now he says, I'm going to pass in a few saturation and lightness, and let's see where he goes next.
So I'm going to turn this into a backtick string, and I'm going to say hue, saturation, and lightness. Now when I call it, let's pass it, I want to pass it different values here now. And notice I'm writing in the percent here. I'm just going to pass in a number here. And I'm going to let JavaScript go ahead. It'll automatically turn whatever I pass it into a string when I use these template literals. So I can just go ahead and just write a number here. I don't have to worry about the percentages and the degrees and all of that.
Because the percentage and the brackets not a part of the specification. So not necessarily part of it. You're thinking of a number.
Yeah. So cool.
So now you've made something that was really specific, that was your like, let me check out if this is working. Now that you have arguments, now you can use it in a more general way, and you're trying it out. Well, if I just shove different numbers in there, does my color wheel, sorry, the color picker, well, do the thing I want to do. Like checking your work every single step of the way.
Yeah.
So, I want to know what some of the next step will be.
Oh, that's a good question.
And where might I go from here?
Looking at the sliders, so you have it on a scale from the first one from like 0 to 360 and the next two from 1 to 100. So you're able to get that input through the event listener through the function.
That's exactly right.
That's exactly right.
I am going to make it so that every time I move this slider, it results in my update color being called with the new values.
So we already have this hue here as a manual thing. Now we want it every time he slides this to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And Jason, are you going to try and tackle all three at once, or are you going to go one at a time? You're going to try and do hue, saturation, and lightness?
I'm going to get one at a time.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
Yep. So what I'm going to do now is get...
I think that's like a super good point, right? Like you're looking at this thinking like, I gotta do all this. You're all looking at this all like, I gotta do this all at one time, right? And you know that Jason is going tiny step, tiny step, tiny step, right? The bigger step you take will actually be faster. This is a phrase I said a lot last quarter. I haven't had to say it a lot this time, which is great, right? Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Anybody know that one? Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. When we work quickly or try and do a lot at once, we make a lot of mistakes. And mistakes are slow. Right? When we go slow, when we go in tiny steps, we will make fewer mistakes and we will catch them faster. A mistake you catch a second after you do it is cheaper to fix than a mistake you make that you don't catch for 2 hours. And that's why Jason is making tiny steps. So when we go slower and we make smaller steps, you don't think like, oh my goodness, it's going to take me forever. No, you're actually going to go faster. When I say to you, like, spend the day planning your week project, you're like, but I have to get started. I need to start writing code. Sure, that way lies a lot of mistakes. Go slower, go faster.
So I've made a variable here that query selects my hue selector. You might see I used a new type of selector here you might not have seen here called an attribute selector. So I'm looking for inputs, and .class and .id are attributes that we use so commonly that CSS has the shorthand for them, dot and the octothorpe, the pound sign for IDs. But you can select on any kind of attribute by using these brackets and then saying the name of the attribute, which in this case is name, and the value of it is hue. So if we look in my HTML, I added the name of this input. Name is an attribute that all inputs have. What is the name of this input field? So instead of just using class, which is really kind of generic for all tags, I'm using an attribute that's specific to form fields, and I'm going to go ahead and use it for that. Yes, Robbie?
So when you grab an element, you're just going to use query selector and then use the practice and do it that way instead of doing like get element by ID or get element by class.
So the brackets are specific to just selecting something with the name hue. I never use get element by ID, and I never use find elements by class name. I use query selector exclusively.
Is there a reason for that?
It's newer, and I get to use the same method across the board.
Because they kind of do something like query selector all and get elements by class name. Kind of do the same thing.
Except one is limited to class names, and the other one I can write any kind of query I want.
So I'll give you, if you go back to your job search, here's something that I learned. Like I didn't know this 6 months ago. So say you wanted to go style all of the links that go off of your web page that are external links a certain way. this could be an A tag, and this could be SRC. And you could style all of the external links one way and all the internal links another way.
Yeah, you could write something A.
Yeah, so like if you want to style all of your A tags, right, that go to another site, you can say, take all of the A tags that are referencing, that have HTTP in the beginning. Those are the things that go away from your site.
Yeah.
Because you have to give the whole URL.
The hat equals means starts with. So any link whose href starts with HTTP, I can style them a different color than all the other links using a selector. I would do this in my CSS, obviously, but Query Selector works with the same selectors you can CSS. You can get really fancy with CSS selectors. There's a lot there, right? And I get surprised on a regular basis by stuff.
Anybody who wants to dig into that more, come see me and I'll share a video with you that goes deep down that rabbit hole.
Is this called a pseudo selector?
A pseudo selector is when you have like a colon here and more stuff after it. That part after the colon is the pseudo selector. Yes, this is called an attribute selector with the brackets.
And Jason could have thrown a class on each of those as well, and that would have been perfectly fine.
Yep. I like name because it's appropriate for input tags to use a name for them.
So now you've got this hue slider, what you're going to do with it.
Yeah. So I notice also as I put this hue slider here, I see this other query selector, and I realize like that's never going to change. I don't need to query select that every time I call my update color function. So I'm just going to move this to make it be a variable in the larger scope here, so that I can use that. And then this update color function is a little bit more efficient now, in that it just changes the background color with the given things. So for a hue slider now, I'm going to say,
You call it hue slider.
yeah, so I'm going to use my little shortcut here, hue slider. The event that I'm going to listen for is the change event, and then I'm just going to say console.log, like, I changed. Let's see what happens.
Checking your work as you go.
Yep. So let's move this. Oh, look, it logged I changed. I'll move it here. I changed again. So how do I get the value that it changed to now? Yeah, in the HTML, I could set like what the range is that's allowed, but I just want to get what value did this land on, right? I could do I changed hue slider dot value. Oops. I changed. I'm 73. I'm 18. I'm 0. I'm 100. I could do that, but something that I realize here is that really these sliders, they're all going to behave exactly the same way, right? So what I might end up doing is using the same function for all of them. So I know this in advance, so I'm going to go ahead and prepare for that. So let's log this event. This function here, a lot of times when we write our event handlers, we weren't specifying any parameters to this function, but this function does get a parameter that we can look at. So I'm just gonna log that event and take a look at it. So there's the event object itself. That represents the event, the change event happening. So the type of the event was change. The target is an input. That's interesting. Where's the target here? It's an input. Let's go look at that. Oh, I clicked on it, and it took me right to the input that happened. So the target was the thing that the event happened to. So if I log the target here, so now when I change, I'm going to make this a little bit. Let's get my size back in place here. When I move this, it logs the actual input itself, right? This agile, that's a Chrome extension I've got injecting something into my page, so ignore that part. So if I move this, what if I log the input.target.value? And we're here. And my function here now is not specific to the hue slider itself. So I could just call this handle change and say const handle change is equal to this function. There we go. And when I go to add the other sliders, I'm going to just let them use the same function, right? So what do I want to have happen in handle change?
You want the range of numbers to be larger, right?
Yeah. So, well, yes, the range of numbers will need to be larger, but I want to update the color, right? So for now, I'm just thinking about the hue still. I know that I'm using the event.target.value, so I can use the other ones, but I'm walking through this in the same process that I would if I was developing it from scratch. So there's a couple things I know I'm going to need to change, but I'm going to check my sanity along the way. So now every time I move this, my hue changes.
Nice.
Of course, my saturation and my lightness, nothing happens, right? So let's go ahead and set up events for those. First, we have to query select them.
Give me 2 more. and 2 more.
Okay. Just have one of these open now. Okay. So I've got these 2 sliders, and I'm going to want to add the same event listener to each of them. So, oh, they're all changing the hue, right? It's kind of obvious why they're all changing the hue. It's because when I call update color is just whatever that field's value is, it's updating it for the hue and not the other ones. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make a const color up here, and I'm going to make it an object, and it's going to have a key called hue, a key called lightness, and a key called saturation. Yes, I do. I'm trying to move it. I wasn't thinking. So now what I can do is, instead of passing these colors in here, when I call update color, I'm just going to say the color.hue, the color.saturation, and the color.lightness. So when this gets called, I don't need to pass in arguments anymore. I'm going to be referring to this object right here. So in my handle change, if this was the hue slider, I want to set the value up here to be my I think the recording is starting to slow down the computer. Event.target.value. So I want to set hue, saturation, or lightness to be the event.target.value. So how can I set the color.hue or the color.saturation or the color.lightness if I'm using the same function for all 3? I can't say color.hue equals here, right? Because it could be the hue, it could be the saturation, it could be the lightness. Is there another way I can figure out which property it is I want to set here? Can anyone think of it?
Take some wild guesses if you're feeling a wild guess. Someone said a switch statement.
Main?
Yeah, maybe.
Brendan's on the right track.
What was it?
So I'm gonna show the HTML here to everybody. Yeah, he just said name. I'm gonna have to fix this whatever is happening here to my computer. One sec.
Is it the recording?
I think it might be.
Or stop
I'm gonna stop it and start it again.
And I think that's where we're going with looking at the name
There we go.
part of that. But
Yeah.
Jason was going to show that
So these
it's not.
inputs have a value, but look at the name of each input. It also has on it, conveniently, the name, hue, saturation, or lightness, which is conveniently the key here where I want to set it. So instead of using
Consistency is king.
the hue here, and I'm going to close this file back up here. Still being slow, it's an improvement, but
This is also why I like longer names for things, because you'll be more consistent with them and know what they are.
so event.target.name is either hue, saturation, or lightness. So I'm saying, hey, color object, I want to set your hue, saturation, or lightness to be my value of my form field. Then I'm going to just call it update color.
We're getting all of that because you appropriately named those targets, those input fields, and it's convenient that the event gives us the target and the target gives us the name.
Yes. So take our saturation down to gray or fully saturated. Lightness, take the color from black to white or somewhere in between, right? And we can take the hue all through the hues. Now, up here I wrote this little bit of code here.
Yeah, I was just noticing that.
Yeah. So check out this string that I made here.
Yeah.
Yep. So I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna call this HSL string. Yeah, I'll just call it HSL. HSL value. There we go. So I'm gonna say const HSL value.
So you just extracted that string
Yeah.
into its own variable.
And then what I'm going to do is, up here, in addition to selecting the well, I'm going to select the caption. And I'm going to get the fig caption tag that's in there. Captions, yep, I got it. Thank you. And down here, oh, and my semantic color got turned off. That's weird. Oh well. I'm going to say caption text content is equal to the HSL value.
So you pulled that string into a variable so you could use it 2 times.
So I could use it twice. So now when I update my color,
So now the text and the color change. Cool.
yeah. So here's one thing that was kind of a bummer is that they're starting off at 0 every time. So
Yeah.
so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just have let's have just have an init function here.
And by starting off every time, you mean every time the page reloads or you reload the page?
It's because these fields up here start off as zeros, and then the sliders are also 0.
Right.
So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna randomize the color.
Ooh, fancy.
And then I'm going to set the sliders to be that color. And some of you may be noticing that we also have a bug with the hue, which I'm going to come back to. So don't think I'm forgetting that. If it's like, fix it. Because, so let's get a random, let's say color dot hue. So math.random gives us what? A random number between 0 and 1. I want a number for Q, 0 and 360, right? So I'm going to do times 360, and then I'm going to round it off. Or do you floor it? I think you floor it. Which always rounds down. Because I don't want it to accidentally round up to 361. And if I get like 0.2, I want to be able to round that down to 0. So I'm going to just always math.floor it. So the saturation and the lightness. So saturation and the lightness are going to be random numbers. you're not 100. And my hue slider now, I'm going to set its value to be color.hue, and so on. So I'm going to copy pasta here.
Just like over.
Yep. Whoops, too much. Okay. So now when my page loads,
You should call it.
and it's oh, I need to call init. Yes, thank you. So I'm just going to call init right here, just at the bottom of the code. Oh, and then we need to call update color.
Right, because it doesn't actually update unless you say update color.
Yeah.
Hey, bring color.
So here's something interesting. Okay.
Okay. So you were saying there was an issue here. Like,
Yep.
Pointing out the slider.
Yeah, so I noticed here that my value is 121, and my slider, I can only get up to 100 on my slider. So let's randomize 251. My slider's just here on the right, and as soon as I move it again, I'd only go up to 100. So my slider needs to really be between 0 and 360, not 0 and 100, which is what it is by default. So I'm going to go back over into my HTML, and I'm going to go ahead and put on the range input, you can specify a minimum value and a maximum value.
Was it alright? Wasn't it 100 on your webpage?
It's
It was. The challenge is that the hues were 360.
Yes,
yes.
but the actual number that's popping up in the box.
Yeah.
Was that 100?
Yeah. So all I could slide it up to before was 100.
The
Now,
number itself was
So
going.
if the number was bigger than the
yeah, that's because my randomize was setting it into the right range. And I also realized I don't want to end up with saturations that are like off all over the place, like 8%. That's almost black, right? So let's do math.random times 50 plus
Can we
point.
do an offset?
Yes.
Yes,
So
it'd be like plus 20.
plus. So if I do times 50 here, it'll be
0 to 50.
0 to 50, and then I can just add 50 to it, and I'll always end up with something between 50 and 100. Yeah. So I'm going to do that in both cases here. Even basic arithmetic, I have to look to Gavin. There we go. And actually, that's too broad. Let's do, for the lightness, let's do 0.25 plus 50. So it'll be somewhere between 25 and 75.
I'll keep it up in the middle.
Cool. So those are reasonable values here for our random color on start.
And the sliders still work.
Our sliders still work.
Does our hue go to 360?
Our hue goes to 360. What if we added one more cool thing to this?
Transparency.
That's it. That's it. So we set up this little function here to handle, this does all the work to handle the change, right? Let's say we want to also add an alpha value here. And we're going to change this to HSLA. And down here, we're going to add color.alpha. And alpha is the level of transparency that the color has. So it made it totally transparent because it's a 0 here, right? So when we init, let's go ahead and just always set the color.alpha to 1 so that it's solid. Let's make our alpha slider over here. I'm just going to copy this, paste it, and I'm going to say alpha. So yeah, and my label. Yes, thank you. So another thing about the alpha slider, let me move this down, is that I don't want my alpha values going. Let's add the event listener for it too, and then I'll come back to what I was just saying. So alpha, and boy, this part here looks super repetitive. I'm going to be refactoring that in a minute. But now my alpha slider, when it changes, like it's totally transparent, and as soon as I move it past 1, it goes to fully alpha, right? So it's not 0 and 100, it's a number between 0 and 1, a fractional number. So in the input here, I'm going to say min 0, and then I'm going to say max is 1. Oh, well, still, I can't drag it in the middle, right? Nope, not for the alpha slider. The problem here is that here, as I was dragging it, every position, it's stepped by 1, right? So when I set the min and the max to 1, it's the 0 and 1, it's still only stepping by 1 when I move it. So there's actually a step value that I can put here, and I'm going to set it to 0.01.
You need 100 little steps along the way.
Yes, 100 little steps. There we go. So I can go totally transparent or totally opaque of this color. Now, because it's on white, it almost looks like I'm just adjusting the lightness, right? So what I'm going to do here is go get an image. Okay. Theironyard.com. Let's get, I know where it is. Where is it? Here it is. Oh, wait. I don't need to do that. Oh, stop, Lindsay. You know, that's not going to work because it's on white, and I have to mess with the background color, all of that. I just.
Oh no, we lost the video from the Apple TV.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to the checkerboard.
Okay.
Find one I like. That one looks beautiful. Gonna save it. Let's see. DIY, color picker, public. Okay. So here in my CSS, the color wheel, I set the background color, but I'm also going to set the background image separately. And this is not going to work. I'm actually going to need to wrap it anyway. So let's set the checkerboard for the whole page. We're going to do this. Yeah. Yeah. Then I'm going to put that background image on the div, and the figure will have its own color. So thank you. what happened to my browser? Kicked it out. There we go. So if I there we go. The image got a little funky. I could mess with that, fix the CSS, but you see what we were going for now. I meant contain. The problem is that it's not. It's yeah. Let me do that. Let me do background repeat, and then I'll turn repeating off, and then I'll set it to cover. So if I do background repeat, no repeat, right, and then I do background. Oh, it's because the div is being all wide. Actually, I'm gonna go ahead and make the back to 200 pixels now. Both of these. That's the line for better. So that's not even.
No.
I'm gonna have to mess with this for a bit, but I'm not going to right now.
We're just trying to show that the alpha is
Oh, I know what I can do.
something.
Why is this not centered with the color the figure is?
Oh, the margin.
Oh, does the figure? Oh, the figure has a. Damn it. No. Thank you.
Margin.
Oh god. There we go. Hey. And this will be cover now. Except, let's get that padding off the fig caption. I hate that line wrapping there. Let's just gonna make the font size smaller for now. There we go. That works for the moment. I don't know what that space is on the side, but you see the point, right? So I can reload here. The alpha is always going to be 1 until we move the slider. But in my init function, I didn't add this here to set its value to 1. Eesh. The recording is starting to pop off again. Yep. So. There we go. So there's a color picker.
Jason, why don't you make a GitHub repo for this and push it and link people to it?
Oh, that sounds great.
So you're gonna get in it this as a project. And then git add all these files. It's gonna get you awesome message.
Let me check something real fast. Okay.
Cool. It's good. And he's gonna help create. You're probably gonna give it a name because he's likely to have a color picker already.
Do I?
You may.
Not on my personal one, I don't
Okay,
think.
cool. We'll find out. We'll go.
Did that just change the origin of your already made repos?
Probably.
It just pointed this to the existing one.
Okay.
So that will do it.
There we go. Except my remotes are wrong. It didn't update those.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do a little surgery real fast.
Please don't do this unless one of us is video or you know what you're doing. You can break some things.
Come on, there we go.
He's just changing the name of the remote, the awesome color picker. So now you can just push press you. And then I'll browse and get his URL. Share everything.
In fact, if I go turn on GitHub Pages,
That's a good idea.
man, the computer is not, it's that video. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the video.
Yeah, you don't need to browse everything.